Then we got the full list of games, and I was kind of like,
This is not Sony's best offering.
I don't feel like any game franchise is represented well enough, right?
Yeah. I'm not going to be in line to buy one. I didn't pre-order one.
There are no visual settings to adjust whatsoever, which is disappointing.
Let's just cobble something together. Don't put too much effort in it. Just do just enough to make something we could reasonably sell. Wait a minute, on their FAQ they misspelled Oddworld. Oddworld? Oddworld?
The PlayStation Classic, a re-release of 20 original titles for a retro-style console from a first-party company with decades of experience in emulation of this platform. How could they manage to fuck this one up? I've been following the PlayStation Classic news since the very night of the announcement of this system, extremely excited, with excitement that just slowly died over time with the more information that came out about it. So today I want to go over some of that information that we've been watching leading up to the release of this, what we know now, and why I think that it failed in the way it did, and why it's probably not a great thing to buy right now. The first thing we got after a long time of waiting was the full games list. They originally only showed like 3, 4, 5 games, and then I think maybe, what was it, like a month later, they finally showed the official games list, and there was a lot to be desired. Now, while this is subjective, it was pretty clear to the general population that this was not a very accurate selection of original PlayStation titles that celebrates what the system was very capable of and the best things that came out of that generation from the PlayStation.
When you think of Grand Theft Auto, Shane, do you think of the PlayStation version? I don't. No. I think of the PC version. If you're just kind of nitpicking the best, like Tekken game, for example, why can't you nitpick what everyone knows to be the best Twisted Metal game?
Regardless of licensing issues, it just wasn't great, but they still had hard-hitting titles like Tekken 3 and Metal Gear Solid. But it was enough to turn off a lot of people from the PlayStation Classic, one of them being Metal Jesus Rocks, and to turn him off from a PlayStation product, you had to be trying pretty hard. To turn off the enthusiastic retro community, you have to be messing up pretty bad, and that is definitely something that they did with this console.
I've canceled my pre-order. It's with a heavy heart that I do so, but honestly, for $100 for only 20 games, I just feel like Sony kind of phoned this in. It's just not a good value, and honestly, I'm probably not going to play most of those games.
So with the games list aside, you would think with this being an original release from Sony, this would be a quality product. They would use quality materials and have perfect emulation, something that they've been doing for the past couple of decades. However, come to find out, they're using third-party emulation software. They're using a modified version of PCX2, I hope I'm saying that right, but basically this is a free software that you could run on your Android phone. This specific version being made for small PC devices like the Raspberry Pi.
The battle swirl is rendered improperly on the Classic. It's a minor thing, sure, but not something you'd expect in an official product. The movement in this game as the screen whips around the city is just awful. It doesn't feel good to play at all as a result of this. The super low frame rate and judder is simply unacceptable in my book.
This completely baffled me, being somebody that's owned a PlayStation 1, 2, 3, PSP, and a Vita. I just couldn't believe that they didn't resort to their own emulation software. The PlayStation TV, which is essentially a PS Vita in a box, has perfect PlayStation emulation, so why is it that they didn't somehow take this software, flip it around, and release a cheaper version of it for a PlayStation? It just doesn't make any sense. A company that has perfected in-house emulation methods, for some reason didn't use their own in their PlayStation Classic console. This is a major red flag. Not because there's anything wrong with the emulation software itself, but this gives the idea that this was an outsourced project, which a lot of people believe, and it's something that makes this look more phoned in and very rushed. So emulation is third party. Red flags are up in the air. The games list is lackluster. We're not getting a first party experience completely through and through. And then we get hands-on experience with the PlayStation Classic, and the emulation is a little off. It feels a little delayed. Come to find out that Sony in their infinite wisdom used the PAL versions in an American console.
The PAL version!
If you don't know, the PAL versions of the game run significantly slower than the American versions of the game, because the European TV standard was different back in the day. Not an issue we have now, but for some reason they chose to use that old technology.
9 of these games on the American PlayStation Classic are PAL versions of the game. PAL games are 50 Hz. NTSC games are 60 Hz. When you're playing these games, they're going to be slower than they are intended because they are the PAL versions of the game.
So the games list isn't great, the emulation isn't Sony's, so it's not a through and through Sony product, and you're getting inferior versions of the games. All of this giving you a nice package and a definitive reason not to buy this console. However, just like the original NES and SNES classics, they could have been modded. We could have gotten good emulation, good games, so even if you weren't a fan of it and you're technically overpaying for this console, you still want that form factor, nice build quality, whatever. You could make your own PlayStation Classic list and mod it into the console potentially when people get their hands on it. However, even that seems to not be a good idea because the build quality on this thing is questionable.
Unfortunately, my console fried about 2 hours after I hooked it up.
Yeah, see, for some reason Sony didn't include an official power brick to power the fucking console. They just kind of said, oh yeah, everybody's got these little things you can plug your USB into and power it, that's fine, whatever. This leaves any confused consumer with the potential to just brick their console, because they put no sort of voltage protection against somebody maybe using the wrong charger because they're not that technically inclined and they don't want to think about that when they're unboxing a $100 product.
For some reason, the thing just fried. Instantly burned up, no point, doesn't do anything anymore. Here's a video what looks like now when I actually try and turn it on. It'll sit there completely blacked out, nothing happens. I plug it in, push the power button, it will shine for a millisecond and then go right back to being a brick of plastic.
See, here's the problem with this. Even if you knew exactly what you're doing, you shouldn't have to go to all this trouble. You shouldn't have to do this research to make sure you're using just the finite amount of voltage to keep yourself from breaking the console. This shouldn't be an issue at all. The console should have a failsafe and protection against this if they can't at the very least include a power brick with it. This was kind of the issue if you used a third-party dock with your Nintendo Switch and it had a weird voltage pattern. I actually bricked my Nintendo Switch from using a third-party dock. Luckily it was within warranty, but yeah, I lost all my save data. That really fucking sucked. This guy wasn't even able to record the footage for this video review without his console breaking on him. Just take that in. Now this is somebody who's actually a little more technically inclined, who has this as a job. People buying this as a gift for Christmas for their kids or whatever aren't going to be thinking about this when they're just plugging their USB into whatever to get it to work. This is a huge problem. So now we're left with a product where even if you modded this yourself to make it a good console, technically inclined or not, you're not getting a solid product because this thing could break on anybody. You could say, yeah, this could happen with any electronics, but the fact that it's this easy because they didn't just include something as simple as a power brick inside the box is just incredibly lazy. These kind of oversights are something you don't really expect from a company like Sony, who has had decades of experience with electronics. They've released everything under the sun, including multiple ways to emulate the PS1. This thing is a terrible value proposition to begin with, even if everything worked right. It's $100. My PlayStation 1 powering this little thing on right here, $20. Okay, that was a lie. I got it for like $25 and it came with like a controller and 5 games, all within like perfect condition. This PlayStation 2 Slim cost me $30. Now you got 2 libraries of games. You can hook this bad boy up through component, not very bad video quality. PlayStation 3, this thing is a brick, it is really hard to hold. Original PlayStation 3. Under $100. You can pick one of these things up, even the slim models, for like $60. Now you can emulate PS3 games and PlayStation 1 games, and if you're lucky and you get one of the old models that work, you can emulate all 3 generations. This is really heavy. So you can damn near get 3 consoles for $100 that can play way more games than that. Not to mention a lot of the games that they have on this list, besides exceptions like Persona, you can get for like a couple bucks just the disc. Memory cards, same deal, just a couple bucks, and you can have the full PlayStation experience for a fraction of the cost. But say you still want that small form factor emulation. Well, this guy actually took it upon himself to make his own PlayStation Classic for like $80, and it blows the original PlayStation Classic out of the water.
For me, HDMI was the priority since I wanted to use this on a 4K TV, but this optional cable is fun to have as an option. I can play whatever I want from my collection and also use analog controllers with the games that support it, or even those that don't, by enabling a tweak in the options menu. And of course, being that this is running RetroPie, you can emulate dozens of systems in addition to the PlayStation, as well as customize it to your heart's content with things like custom user interfaces and graphics shaders to make things look however you like. So, yeah, that's my LGR Station Classic build.
So unless you just really want a $100 ornament that's gonna sit on your shelf, there's virtually no fucking reason to buy the PlayStation Classic, and that's really disappointing. It was such an easy sell. Just give us good games with good emulation on a cheap console to manufacture. How Sony messed this up is beyond me. I know a lot of this was regurgitation, but as somebody who really likes the PlayStation, I just wanted to stress all of the different methods you have, and maybe if you were considering the PlayStation Classic, maybe look into these first. I would only buy a PlayStation Classic on the condition that I could fully mod it and have perfect emulation on it, but even then, I'm way more interested in this Raspberry Pi where I can just put any game I want on it right out of the box. And I can play with a PlayStation 4 controller. But that's pretty much all I got, guys. I just wanted to inform you on that. My webcam just cut off. Hello, this is me editing this video like a week after recording it. I just wanted to go ahead and let you guys know if you're interested in this topic any further, please check out the videos and sources I cited in this video. They did a much better job on covering this than I did. Also, if you're new here and you like this type of content, maybe check out some of the other stuff I do, and if you really do enjoy my content, maybe consider supporting me on Patreon. I don't make any money off of YouTube at all. Any donations are greatly accepted and they help me directly fund these videos. So, with that being said, I'm gonna get out of here and finish this video up. Hopefully you guys enjoyed, and I will see you on the next one. It's been T. Bye.